Hi there, welcome to today's lesson where what we're doing is we're having a look at bidding flowcharts. Now this is a pretty touchy topic for me, I have to say, because bidding flowcharts are one thing that I absolutely hate. And the reason for that is that you learnt this game so that you could think for yourself. What bidding flowcharts and cheat sheets do is they make you sort of rely on them, and rather than actually thinking about it, you constantly turn to them to figure out what you should be bidding. So I'm going to do a lesson on them today because they are useful if used in the right way. And the right way is that you should be using them as an idea of sort of how to wrap your mind around bidding different hand types and the approaches that you should be taking as the opener, the overcaller, the responder, or whoever you are. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look through some bidding flowcharts that we have, but I want you to keep in mind that the whole aim of these charts is they should be teaching you a way of thinking rather than being something that you're going to constantly rely on at the table in a supervised session or something like that. So let's get into it. Now, these flowcharts that we have will be available on the website for you to download, but I'm just going to work through them on the video here as well to show you how they work and then how we'd apply them in the bidding. So first of all, we're going to look at our flowchart on bidding as opener. And one of the most important things about using flowcharts is making sure you get the right flowchart to start with. So if I'm the opener, I have to be looking at the opener's chart. I can't be looking at another one. Okay, so we start up the top and we have a look at our first question. Do I have 12 or more points? And then we work our way through. If the answer is yes, what I want to do is consider, am I a balanced hand or not? And this is the approach that you should be thinking about when you pick up a hand and you're the opener. Am I balanced or am I unbalanced? So what we mean by that is that are you a hand that has roughly the same amount of cards in each and every suit? Now there's three balanced what we call hand shapes. The most balanced, that's when you've got 4 cards in one suit and 3, 3, 3 in all of the other suits. There's a 4, 4, 3, 2, so 2 4-card suits, a 3-card suit, and also a 2-card suit. And the last one is a 5, 3, 3, 2. And they're the family of what we call balanced hand shapes. And it's just basically figuring out the distribution of your hand. There's some what we call semi-balanced shapes, so that'd be a 6, 3, 2, 2, and the other ones are 4, 4, 4, 1. Everything else we consider to be unbalanced. So basically you'll either have 1, 2, or 3 long suits. Now, if I'm in a balanced hand shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a generic approach that I take towards my hand. And if we come down here, we basically go with yes, and the next consideration is which point range are you in? Because this is going to affect the approach that you take on the hand. So if your minimum, that's just 12 to 14 points, we're going to be looking at this top row first. We're going to bid our longest minor. Now, when I say the balanced hand, this assumes that we're not going to have a 5-card major. Some people like to open with a 5-card major in their 1 no trump, but for newer players, a lot of the time you'll open one of your major suit if you did have a 5-card major, rather than opening 1 no trump. So what this assumes is that you don't actually have a 5-card major in your hand. So we say the first thing you want to do is you want to open your longest minor suit. Then what should happen at the next bid you make, you're probably going to actually bid 1 no trump. Now this is just a general guide. It's what you want to do unless something changes. Now there's one primary thing that might change, and let's have a look at it. Let's, for instance, consider that what ends up happening is that you've actually got the situation where you've actually got a fit with your partner. So what we're looking at here is something like when the bidding goes 1 club by you, because that was your longest minor suit, and your partner bids 1 heart. Here they'd be promising 6 or more points and 4 or more hearts. Now, if you've got a fit with them, your first priority should always be to raise that fit. So it should always be to bid 2 hearts or 3 hearts or 4 hearts. But if you didn't have a fit with them, if you were that balanced hand, your job's going to be to bid 1 no trump. So the approach we're taking is that we're going to open our longest minor at first, and then we're going to bid 1 no trump unless something else comes in the way. And for the most part, that's going to be either that you have a fit with your partner. If you've got a fit with your partner, you just simply want to raise them. Alternatively, it might be that the opponents interfere. So the opponents might get in there and bid something like 2 diamonds. that could be something that's going to change your plan as well. Unfortunately, it's not covered in the flowcharts because we'd be making flowcharts from here to eternity if we had that. But this is just the general approach that we're going to have. Now, if you're a medium opener and you're in that 15 to 17 point range and you're balanced, what you want to do at the very start of your hand is you want to bid one no trump. And that's how you're going to describe the balanced 15 to 17 point range. If you're in a maximum range, so we call that 18 to 19 points, what we're looking at is your first bid again. We open our longest minor suit. So it might be one diamond, it might be one club. Again, if your partner bids a suit that you've got 4 cards in, so if you had 4 spades, your job's going to be to raise their spades. But if you don't have a fit with them, your job's going to be to jump bid into two no trumps. Now, if your partner had actually responded at the 2 level, you've actually got to jump to 3 no trumps. So it all changes based on what happens in the auction, but your general approach is that you're going to open one of your minor suit and then you're going to jump bid to 2 no trumps. Times that are going to change this, for instance, if your partner were to bid 1 no trump showing 6 to 9 points, if you're a balanced hand with 18 or 19, it's changed a little bit. You don't want to bid 2 no trumps here because that'd just be inviting them to game. Instead, what you've got to do is actually jump to 3 no trumps. And this is another reason why I guess flowcharts have a great aspect to them, but at the same point they can get you into trouble because they don't really cover every single situation that occurs. But what we want to do is use them to build a general idea of what we should be trying to do with each and every hand that we pick up. So if I'm a balanced opener, what I'm going to do for the first part is put myself into a point range. Am I minimum, medium, maximum, or do I even have extras? And then I'm going to basically have the approach that I either bid no trumps at my first opportunity. With 15 to 17, this means starting off with a 1 no trump bid. And with 20 to 22, those extras, it means starting off with a 2 no trump bid. If I don't fit in those point ranges, if I'm either weaker or if I'm in even a stronger category, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with my longest minor, and then depending on what happens at that stage, my job will either be to bid 1 no trump, or instead, if I was 18 to 19, I actually need to jump bid in no trumps, say something like 2 no trumps. And that's the general approach we are going to take as the opening bidder if you're a balanced hand. Now, it's much more interesting if you actually fit into an unbalanced hand category. So this is where we've come down, we do have 12 or more points. If we didn't, we'd just pass. And what ends up happening is when the question is asked, are we balanced? Our answer was no. Now, the great part about being an unbalanced opener is that you basically get to do sort of the same thing no matter what it is. So you're always going to open your longest suit. Now, one consideration you should have is, are you what we'd call 1 suited, 2 suited, or a 3 suited hand? Now, what this basically means is how many suits with at least 4 cards do you have in your hand? If you're a 1 suited hand, generally you'll have a 6 card suit, but you won't have any other suits with 4 or more cards. If you're a 2 suited hand, you'd have something like a 5 card suit and a 4 card suit, or even a 5-5, could even be better. And if you're 3 suited, that'd be a hand that, can you figure out what hand it would be? There's one very 3 suited hand, and there's one that's in the semi-balanced category. The most unbalanced would be 5-4-4-0 as a hand shape. And our semi-balanced hand, that was where we've got 3 4-card suits and 1 1-card suit. So that's how we divide ourselves. So we're 1 suited, 2 suited, or 3 suited. And the way that it works, each and every time you can see as your approach, no matter what your points are, and no matter if you're 1 suited, 2 suited, or 3 suited, you always want to start off by bidding one of your longest suit. Doesn't matter what suit it is, always start off with one of your longest suit. The next bit's where it gets to be a little bit interesting. Knowing exactly why this happens, you do need a little bit of knowledge about reverses. We do have a lesson on reverses if you'd like to take a look at it. But basically what we're going to do, if we're sort of in that 2 suited or 3 suited, what we want to do is we want to bid another suit if we can. And this is when we're in the sort of minimum or medium range, maximum range. If we're in the minimum range, we do have a bit of a problem though. And this is because we have to do what we say, bid the cheapest out of your first suit and the other suit. Now this might sound a little bit confusing at first, but I'll explain how it works. So let's say we started off with a bid of 1 heart, and then our partner bid 1 spade. Now what bidding the cheaper of our first bid suit and our other suit means is which bid is the cheapest in the auction. At this point our auction's at 1 spade. So which is going to be cheaper here? Let's say that you have 4 clubs in your hand. A bid of 2 clubs would be a cheaper bid, a lower bid than a bid of 2 hearts. So what we'd want to do if we had, say, 5 hearts and 4 clubs, because bidding 2 clubs is cheapest, what we'd want to do is we'd want to bid 2 clubs here. Now, if we have a look at a different scenario, let's say our longest suit was clubs and we started off with 1 club. Then let's say again our partner came back and bid 1 spade, and this time if we had, say, 5 clubs and 4 hearts, now what would happen is our cheapest bid out of bidding 2 hearts or 2 clubs is actually going to be the 2 club bid. We can't bid our 4 card suit. Now this comes into basically what happens with reverses. So you do need to know a little bit of knowledge about that. But basically what would happen is if I didn't bid the cheapest one, if I bid a more expensive one, so 2 hearts here, what's going to happen is that I'm going to be promising my partner extra points. So I'm going to be promising my partner that I've got 16 or more points. And we don't want to do that. Now, even if you don't know about reverses, you should still apply this rule because you might be playing with somebody who does. And just believe me, in the long run, it's going to work out much more to your advantage if you've just done this from the start. So what we're trying to do, if we're a 2 or a 3 suited hand, we're going to start off bidding our longest suit, and then what we're going to do, if we're maximum or medium, we're going to bid our second suit no matter what happens. If we're in the minimum point range, that's going to be the tricky one. What we need to do then is we need to choose the cheapest out of whether we're going to bid our second suit or whether we're simply going to rebid our first suit. So this would be, for instance, here, do I want to rebid 2 hearts or do I want to rebid 2 clubs? And if we were just a weak hand, a minimum opener, what we'd have to do is actually start off with a bid of 2 clubs at the first stage. So this is how we take the approach with 2 and 3 suited hands as the opener. If you're what we call a single suited hand, where you've only got 1 long suit, what you do is you're simply going to rebid your suit, and depending on how many points you have is dependent on the level. Just a weak hand, you just rebid it at the lowest level. If you're medium, what you're going to want to do is jump bid in the bidding. So basically showing your partner that you'd like to invite them to game if they were just a weak responder. And this is how we're going to correctly describe both our points and also the shape of our hand. Okay, so that's how we take the approach as our bidding as an opening bidder. A main consideration to have is that this flowchart, it's a useful guide, but there are things that get in the way. The first and most important is that if your partner bids something and you do have a fit with them, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to raise them rather than taking this approach. The second thing that might come into the way is if the opponents interfere, you're going to have a few problems and you're going to need to do something else. So that's the general approach we're going to have as the opener, and why don't we have a look at a hand or two to see how we go with it. Okay, so here we are with this one. Now, if I use the flowchart to work out what I'm going to do, I start off as, am I the opener? Well, am I going to be the opener? Always a good thing to check. Do I have 12 or more points? And yes, I do have 12, only just. My next question, would I follow the yes? Am I going to be a balanced hand or an unbalanced hand? And here I do fit into a balanced category. So I'm a 4-4-3-2 hand shape, 2 4-card suits, 1 3-card suit, and a 2-card suit. My next question is, what range am I in? And I fit in just this minimum range, 12 to 14. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with my longest minor suit, and my second bid, I'm probably going to bid 1 no trump unless something else comes in the way. So what I'd want to do is start off with 1 club, and let's, for instance, say my partner bid 1 spade. What I could do now is I could actually then raise their spade. So rather than bidding 1 no trump, here I'd actually raise their spade. So I'd bid 2 spades. On the other hand, if my partner did something else, let's say, for instance, they actually bid 1 heart, Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bid one no trump, because that's generally my aim. Now, some people might have been taught that here what you do is you'd actually bid your 4-card spade suit rather than bidding one no trump. If you've been taught that, that's okay. They're two different approaches. Both have their strengths and weaknesses. They're just two different styles, and you might have been taught one or the other. In all honesty, it doesn't matter too much which you do. Just make sure you do keep it consistent with your partner. Personally, I do prefer the approach where you bid one no trump, but that's a story for another day. We have a lesson called Walsh style bidding if you wanted to see that one. Okay, let's have a look at another hand and see what we get dealt. Need to get some points. All right, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so here we are. Do I have my 12 or more points? And the answer is going to be yes to that one. So I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 just in high card points. And some people might like to add a length point as well for having a 5-card spade suit. Am I balanced? Now this one's an interesting question here with the 5-card major suit, and this will depend on your partnership style. Some people will just automatically open one spade because they do have a 5-card suit. And this is what this flowchart is geared for, but some people will open one no trump when they do have a 5-card major. Just depends on your partnership style. So if I was going with no, I'm not balanced because I've got that 5-card major, I go down and it's sort of which point range am I in? And it's basically going to be that I start off with that one spade bid and see what happens from there. If you open a spade, you get a lot of information most of the time, where what you can do is see what partner does. If my partner were just to bid one no trump, I'd have a good idea that we don't actually want to play game because partner's only got 6 to 9 points. And I'd also know they weren't able to raise spades, so they don't have 3 of them, and I'd be quite fine to pass. On the other hand, if they bid something else, I've then got to choose my rebid. And this one's a bit awkward, and it's one of the reasons why some people like to actually include a 5-card major in their one no trump. So let's say my partner bids something like 2 clubs. At this stage, I don't really fit into a single suited hand because I don't have a 6-card suit. But I might be able to backtrack now and say that I was balanced. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to bid 2 no trumps. And this is just bidding no trumps at the lowest level, so it's telling my partner that I'm going to be a weak hand, but I am sort of balanced. I had 5 spades though. But this is where, for instance, I guess having a brief approach with flowcharts does come unstuck a little bit when you've got these hands that don't really fit into the category. So there we go. That's how we're going to be looking at bidding as the opening bidder. Let's move on to our next flowchart and we'll see how we go here. So now we're going to look at limiting our hand. So this is one about when are you actually going to tell your partner what your points are going to be. And we're looking at both the opener and the responder. So this is going to be, have I been the person who's actually told partner their points? When we think about an auction, basically what happens is that in our conversation, at some stage, one player is going to say, hey partner, I've got this specific point range. And then what happens is it's the other person's job to be the captain or actually take over the auction and know how high we're going to go. So what happens is that there's 3 ways we can limit our hand. The first one is that anytime we bid no trumps, we have to tell our partner our points. The second one is anytime we rebid a suit we've already bid, we have to tell partner our points. And the last one is going to be anytime we raise our partner. In all 3 of these situations, we're going to have to tell partner our points. And just in terms of how we're going to, I guess, do this, we have to think about, am I actually a limited hand or not? So am I about to bid no trumps or repeat a suit that's already been bid? Now, if the answer is yes, I'm going to be the player that's going to have to limit my hand. So if I want to bid no trumps, or if I want to raise my partner, or if I want to rebid my own suit, I'm the hand that's going to be basically doing one of these things. So here I have to think about which point range am I in. And I have to put myself into one of these categories. And I could either be the opener or the responder, but either way I have to think about myself as, am I minimum, medium, maximum, Or do I maybe even have extras? We only really consider extras here as a responder because as an opener, you might have opened something like 2 clubs. So the first thing I want to do is I want to consider which of these point ranges am I in. A minimum would just be 12 to 15 for an opener, sort of 16 to 18 for a medium, and also 19 to 21 for a maximum. Now, if I want to do one of these 3 things, bid no trumps, raise my partner, or rebid my own suit, what I have to do is I have to do it at the right level to tell my partner my points. So if I'm just in a minimum hand, I do this bid at the very lowest level I can, and that just tells partner I'm just a minimum opener, my 12 to 15. If I'm a medium, what I do is I jump 1 level, and if I'm a maximum, I bid game. So let's have a look at how this would work with an auction. Alright, so first of all, let's say that I start off with a bid of 1 heart, and my partner bids 1 spade. And at this time, let's say that I had 6 hearts, and I wanted to rebid my hearts. They were my only long suit. My job would be, am I going to bid no trumps or repeat a suit that's already been bid? And the answer would be yes. So now I've got to think about which point range am I in. If I was just 12 to 15, just a minimum opener, my job would be to bid 2 hearts. If I was actually a medium opener, my job would be to bid 3 hearts, and that describes my points to my partner. And last of all, what I'd have to do is actually jump to game to be able to show my partner that I had maximum points. So this is something like 19 to 21. Now it would work the same if I was also raising my partner. So spades is a suit that's already been bid. If I was just a minimum opener, my job would be to bid 2 spades. If I was actually a medium opener, so that's sort of our 16 to 18, or you might consider it as 15 to 17, my job is to jump bid in the auction to 3 spades. And last of all, as that 19 or more, my job is to bid 4 spades. And we work out these numbers by knowing that responder had to have 6 to bid, so it means with 19, our opener would know they had enough for game. And that's how we get these numbers. It works out somewhat similar with our responder. The difference is the points that they need to be counted in a range. So if we have a look, if we were the responder and we happen to have a fit with our partner, what we'd want to do is we'd want to bid 2 hearts if we were just a weak hand, 6 to 9, 3 hearts if we were a medium hand, sort of our 10 to 12, and 4 hearts if we had even more points. If you get those extras hands, 16 or more, it can be quite difficult to cope with. What you're going to need to do is make a forcing bid, and these are going to be varied based on sort of what's happened with your system. So you might have a way of raising, telling your partner that you are interested in slam and you do have extras, but that one depends on your partnership agreements. So if we have a look at a hand, what would we do with this one? So here our partner's opened 1 heart and the bidding's up to us. Now with this hand, I'd want to bid hearts as well because I'd know that we're going to have a fit. So what I'd do is I'd come down and see, am I about to bid no trumps or repeat a suit that's already been bid? And the answer is yes, I'm going to bid a suit that partners bid. I'm going to raise their hearts. So how am I limited? No. And which point range am I in? I'm going to be the responder. So what I do first of all is add up any points I've got with my shortage points. I've got 11 high card points, and I actually wouldn't count any shortage points for this hand. And that's because my shortage also has an honor. We've got a daily dose that explains why double dipping on that's a little bit, basically something you should avoid. So what I'd do here, I'd count myself in the medium point range, 10 to 12 points. My job here would be to bid 3 hearts or jump 1 level in the bidding to describe my points to partner. Then what happens is the job goes all the way over to them. So what happens once partner has limited their hand? Now at this stage, my partner's job is to add our points together. Their job is that they have to pretend they know we've got 10 to 12 and they want to add them together. And do we have a chance of game? If the answer is yes, what they want to do is they want to bid game. If the answer is no, what they want to do is they simply want to pass. If the answer is minimum, what they'd like to do ideally is invite me to game. So let's pretend my partner had something like 13 or 14 points here. If they know that I've got a 10 to 12 hand, they'd ideally like to be able to find out if I'm closer to that 12 or actually just closer to 10. And if I was closer to 10, they'd just simply want to play 3. If I was closer to 12, they would want to play game. What they really want to do is they want to bid 3.5 hearts, but of course they can't do this. They have to just make a decision. Most of the time I'd say that you're much better off being optimistic rather than pessimistic, and they should just give 4 hearts a go. On the other hand, if we have a look, if the bidding had actually gone on a different hand, say we had had less points, if the bidding had gone 1 heart past 2 hearts, and that would be where I'm just showing 6 to 9 points, what could happen here is that if my partner had, say, something like 17 points, they'd know if I had 6, we don't have enough for game. But if I had 9, we definitely would have enough for game. And this is a situation where they would have been able to invite with something like 3 hearts. And then what I could do, if I was just 6, I'd just simply pass. But if I was closer to 9, I'd bid 4 hearts. So after your partner's limited their hand, it's your job to add up the points together and decide how high the partnership could go. Okay, so that's our flowchart on limiting your hand. The next one goes over a 2-club game forcing bid. And this is one that a lot of people always get a bit confused about what to do over 2-club openings. And this is, I guess, an approach that you can take. So do you have 23 or more points if you're balanced, or 21 or more points if you're unbalanced? Now you might have been taught something slightly different, maybe 19 plus and unbalanced, or even more, but this is generally the approach that we're going with. So if you do, your job is going to be to open 2 clubs. Now, depending on what your partnership style is, we recommend that your partner will bid 2 diamonds unless they have their own 6-card suit. So after your partner bids 2 diamonds, that's what we're assuming. What we need to do is consider, are we balanced or not? So we've opened 2 clubs, we had that 23 or more imbalanced, or 21 and more and unbalanced. We opened 2 clubs and now it's come back to us and we've got to decide what to do. So here we're at the position of 2 clubs by us, pass, 2 diamonds by our partner, and now what are you going to do? The first question again, and you might be seeing a theme here, is are you balanced or unbalanced? Now, if the answer is that you're unbalanced, it's quite easy. What you want to do is you simply want to bid your longest suit. And you're going to start to have a conversation by bidding all your suits. If you're actually a balanced hand, your job's going to be to bid no trumps. And we have to bid no trumps at the appropriate level. 2 no trumps would show that I have 23 or 24 points. 3 no trumps would show that I've got 25 to 27, and it gets even higher. Imagine if you picked up a hand with 28 or 29. Your job is to bid 3 no trumps. If you picked up 30 to 32, your job's going to be to bid 5 no trumps. That's getting really high. And even more, it'd be 6 no trumps. And if you happen to have that 35 to 37, go for it. Bid 7 no trumps. But this is how we're telling partner how many points we had. That we're balanced, and this is how many points that I have. I've never seen this auction and I'd love to see it someday. So if you have it, please send it through. Okay, now next one, what we're going to do is we're going to look at preempting. And this is one that, again, I guess it's a flowchart that I really love, but it does actually come about some problems, because the first thing we need to know is, are we in a position that we are able to preempt? And there's only really 2 ways we can preempt. The first one is if we were the opening bidder, and the second one is if we're actually the overcaller, so doing something like this. They're the only 2 positions. So let's have a look at what we want to be thinking about. Do we have a weak hand, so less than an opening hand? Most people normally consider it about 6 to 9, and a 6-card suit, or better. If the answer is no, we don't want to preempt because our hand's not appropriate. If the answer was yes, we want to consider, do we have a side 4-card major? Now that's an interesting question. What it means by this is, do you have a 6-card suit, but you also have 4 hearts or 4 spades? Now, if the answer is yes, that you do have 4 hearts or 4 spades, you don't want to preempt. You actually want to pass. Now, it seems a shame that you have to pass, but when we preempt, we're telling partner we have 1 long suit. We're not really interested in anything else as trumps. If you've got a 4-card major though, you're actually interested potentially in another suit as trump. So you're best passing it first and then seeing what happens in the auction. You might be able to have a better discussion with your partner. So the next thing, if we don't have a 4-card major suit, what we want to do, these are actually around the wrong way. This one should be a yes and this one should be a no. We want to consider, are we vulnerable? And what this does is this actually changes the power of our hand and when we want to preempt. As a general rule when you're learning, if the answer was going to be yes, what we want to have is 3 of the top 5 cards in our suit. So you want to have a strong suit. You want to have a suit that's actually going to be one that can definitely take some tricks, and that's because there is a significant risk when you are vulnerable. So let's have a look at this one here. If we take a look at this hand's absolutely beautiful. It might even be considered as too strong by some people to preempt, but it does have at least 3 of the top 5 cards. So we consider out of the ace, the king, the queen, the jack and the 10, do you have at least 3 of the top 5? If the answer is yes, what you're going to do is preempt. If the answer was no, when you're vulnerable, you typically wouldn't want to preempt on a hand like this. And this is because the risk is just too high. When you've got good cards in your suit, it's going to make your hand much stronger. When you're not vulnerable though, you can afford to, I guess, go down less in your contract. When you preempt, you're not aiming to make your contract. So we only need 2 out of the top 5. So you could just have the ace and the king, or even something like the queen and the jack. You definitely need less. The next question, our final check, is how long is our suit? And if your suit length has 6 cards, you want to do your preempt at the 2 level. If your suit has 7 cards, we're looking at the 3 level. And if you have 8 or more cards in your suit, you're looking at the 4 level for a preempt. One important thing to remember, you can't preempt with 2 clubs. So a 2 club opening, not a preemptive bid that you could make. So there are some bidding flow charts that we do have available for you and you might want to look at. And I hope it does give you an idea about the thought process that you should be having when you consider opening a hand, or how you respond and how you generally bid. But the important part is that you don't want to be able to use these ones so that you can actually, I guess, end up relying on them. What you want to be able to do is learn the thought process that's there and then be able to apply it to your general game. So thanks all for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye.